There is some confusion concerning the concept of humility. Most people associate humility with a spiritual trait that, although quite admirable, it tends to downplay. It isn't very flashy, and it's often confused with submissiveness or modesty, a subdued attitude that's hard to be associated with a virtue. It doesn't often appear among the values that most people would pursue. Values such as courage, determination, resilience, honor, commitment. Values that emphasize the stamina of a person, her capacity to overcome any obstacle. What we imagine a humble person to be instead is one who tiptoes across her life as if she were to ask permission to occupy some space and to even exist. If you were to randomly ask people for a synonym of humility, 9 of 10 out of them would utter the word modesty. But is that really so? A humble person is a modest one? Well, in their ways and behaviors, a humble and a modest person would seem to be quite similar, but in fact, they're a whole lot different. Modesty is actually the other side of arrogance, as both these attitudes come from the same feeling of insecurity, which are, however, expressed as opposite to each other. And this is what misleads us. The arrogant hates feeling insecure, but he's constantly in touch with a deep sense of inferiority. And although he may not be aware of it, he does all he can to avoid that state. And he does it by trying his best to crush others in the process. The modest is also insecure, and he sets limits for himself in order to avoid having to fight against his weakness, which he ultimately accepts, settling for whatever he's able to reap, and then complain about it, acting as a victim. Humility is a totally different thing, and it's generated by feelings and thoughts that are opposed to those of arrogance and modesty, not from a state of weakness and insecurity, but of strength and certainty, which is precisely why he doesn't have the need to prove anything to anyone. The humble is not afraid to expose who he really is, including his doubts and faults. He doesn't need to show anybody what he's not. He doesn't wear masks. He doesn't pretend anything, which makes him a free individual, and that very freedom is what makes him strong. That's why humble people are so loved. A bit like loving children, whom no matter how many times they fall and make mistakes, they immediately get back on their feet and try again, without hesitation or shame, until they succeed. We often tag as humble those people who are less fortunate, not too educated or unpretentious, while forgetting that humility can be boxed in stereotypes or cliches and is quite dispassionate about what others may think. Picasso said that it takes time to become young, and it's the same about becoming humble. Humility is not a character trait. Nobody's born humble. One becomes humble in time, when once having gotten control over his ego, he's able to get in touch with whom he really is, with the greatness within, and he feels that he's one thing with the world and with the extraordinariness of life.